here we have Jessica Morales. I'm super, super excited to be interviewing her. This is going to be the first time I'm speaking to a mind strategist. And if you don't know what that is, it's okay. We're going to get all into that. So thank you so much, Jessica, for being here.
Absolutely. You're so welcome. I know it's a term that people go, well, what is that? Like you meet somebody at a party. Well, not these days with pandemic, but you know what I mean? A Zoom party or one of the networking events. And they're like, wait, what is that? And people's ears get perked up. Really, so what I do is my specialty is in hypnotherapy. Mm-hmm. So I'm an expert in brain training. And I also bring in advanced EFT. I'm an advanced EFT practitioner, which is emotional freedom technique. Have you heard of that, Reyna, before? EFT?
No. EFT. I feel like I have, but probably just from a book or something.
Yes. Oh, it's phenomenal. EFT is just such a wonderful tool where you actually tap on the ends of your acupoints, just as if you were doing acupuncture with needles, except you're using your fingers. So I really love this technique because when you're working with a client on a presenting issue, you can teach them how to tap it out of their system. So unprocessed emotions that show up from like you feel negative, you feel, kind of down in the dumps and things like that, or you feel stuck, locked, or blocked. Oftentimes it's because of an unprocessed emotion that's in the physical body and it's disrupting your energy that's going through the meridian points. And it's what you do in acupuncture, except you're doing it for yourself.
You help overcome unhelpful tendencies, unlock blocks, wire positive habits, and gain mental mastery over your goals. How did you get towards being a mind strategist?
What happened was my mom had Alzheimer's and I dropped everything to be with her and I moved in with her at the hospice. They knew I wasn't going to leave. So they gave me a cot and I lived at a hospice for months and months and months in New York City. And when I came back, I just, you feel like, this acting thing, it doesn't feel as important when you just lived with people that I would say up to 6 people passing in a day. I would have the honor of being in some of those rooms with people who didn't have family, that I could just talk to them through their ear and just because the auditory is the last thing to go, whisper something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You'll be surprised how resilient your spirit is if you just come from a place of love. And at that time, I didn't have any of this training. I didn't have the relationship with God that I do now. But I guess I was being prepared, And my mom was like a show off. They'd be like, oh, she has she's going critical. And the next day she was like, blink, 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 woke up and was like, I'm still here. And I was like, okay, Mom, we have work to do here, And, because you have to have that humor as well. And then there were some really painful moments. And I got to meet other family members. Usually there's one kid that's there, or sometimes no one. But it's really hard for people when they know that any day that loved one is going to no longer be there. So coming back, it changed my perspective. And I got really curious about how people overcome the worst pains of their life. So I always say, don't follow your passion, follow your curiosity, because you'll never want to stop learning about things. And it usually feels like the path that you're supposed to be doing for your career even, and it'll be very fulfilling for you.
I love also what you said about don't follow your passion, follow your curiosity, because that's another thing people struggle finding what to do, or they're just I don't, that and that's really sad.
So that's why I wrote that article that I referenced before we got on here for Psychology Today. I write for them, and it was about the research by Professor Vallerand, who is a phenomenal professor in Canada, in Montreal, and I saw him present research on the 2 types of passion. And it's incredible, especially in the work arena and for athletes. And there's harmonious passion and there's obsessive passion. So we're telling everybody, follow your, if you're not passionate, and then people get obsessive. And so you start training your brain to have those tendencies that are not so helpful for you. It's difficult to find joy in other things. It's difficult. You'll see them in athletes. They can't be with their family members because they're thinking about the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of us, we're thinking about our businesses, but we can't enjoy other activities that would be harmonious if our life were more balanced with these things. And that's why it's super important for you to introduce more harmonious passions into your life while you're pursuing what you're passionate about. And if you pursue what you're curious about, it helps. So in the article, I give steps about that. What I started to do is go to research. Whenever I'm not sure about something, I go to just look at the research. And what I realized was there was so much data behind pre-surgical outcomes, post-surgical outcomes with people who prime their mind using hypnosis, hypnotherapy, cancer patients, just wonderful things. And I was like, wait a minute, that's so true. We're walking around all day long, highly suggestible to our environment and taking all these negative triggers. And our brain is going like more geared towards the negative with worrisome thoughts and ruminating thoughts and all these things. So we're actually being hypnotized all the time. So what if I made people aware of that and brought to their subconscious tendencies that tend to be negative? And have them become their own mind coach and be super aware, vigilant of what they allow in this precious organ of yours. So I help you with your willpower, forming new habits, overriding the critical mind or the ego and all those things that can come into play, and then making you aware that you're pulling from your old life script. So how you're processing the world, your limiting beliefs, being pulled from this life script that's housed in the subconscious, So I said, we really have to address that area in order to see profound change.
What are some of your daily habits that you do that help with your your mindset and everything?
I do dream therapy. So I know that whatever I take into in my state and my mental awareness is going to go right into my dream. And your brain is going through overnight therapy every single evening. And its job is to get rid of toxicity and to store away your memories and to predict the next day for you because it wants to keep you safe. So if you bring that worry and that future pacing and the heaviness, your brain is going to take that data and it's going to take that input and output the same thing the next day, and you'll feel the same way. So like you said, journaling, that's a big one too, and just venting it out. I say vent it out, then redirect it. So redirect the vent. So after you vent it out, then identify 3 or 4 using positive emotions, claims or statements, claiming your day for the next day ahead of time, like setting your mind up. I call it priming the mind to the upside, prime your mind to the upside. And then I do pray and I say, I want to really have meaningful sleep. I actually don't want to know my dreams. Sometimes you remember your dreams and most times you don't. So that when I really want restful sleep, I'll say, I don't even need to know about the dreams. Just put whatever deposits I need in there. Because that's when you're literally integrating all your new learnings. And that when I wake up, and I do this in hypnotherapy with my clients in terms of them expecting to feel restored, rejuvenated when they wake up, and already they're on that road to recovery or whatever it is that they're working on or getting closer to their goals. And people love that. I also like to go get elevated to see a wider perspective, because when we're thinking about our problems, we have what's called more of a myopic view, like just looking at that little dirt, that little stain, and but we're not seeing. We need to train our brain to open up. We have to use positive emotion. So this is in the science. If I practice gratitude, if I practice love, if I feel that through my heart space, I'm going to make my heart and my brain coherent, meaning they're operating seamlessly together. The body is balancing. We're getting to a state of homeostasis. Now my brain opens up to see a more wider view. Ultimately, the neurons in your brain, you want them firing what this better feeling is or this belief system is. And the more they fire together, that belief system, and you take those actions through behavior, you're going to hardwire that into your new way of thinking. It's your new operating blueprint, your new operating manual. Now you get over those limiting beliefs.
What about for the limiting beliefs of money? I feel like that's something that a lot of people struggle with too. And I just feel like what would you recommend, or what are some tips that you give for people to remove this blockage of money mindset?
Well, a really wonderful thing that we do I do in hypnotherapy, and some of the people who are trained in the modality that I'm trained in, is we do something called obstacle discovery, because oftentimes when you are cognitively in your thinking brain thinking about, well, why am I not moving forward in this? Or why do I think like this when it comes to success or my money? Or why am I stuck, locked, or blocked? It doesn't come through sometimes just thinking about it, a lot of times. And so when we relax the physical body and we can walk through that together and say, okay, let's create a guided imagery, right? And then you invite in that obstacle that shows up. Most of the time, the obstacle that shows up is something the client didn't even think would show up, you know? And they're like, okay, I something like they'll talk to me, something showing up, and I'm like, okay, would you like to explore that obstacle? What is that limiting belief, right? So it could be tied into when I was, oh my gosh, so this is coming up. Let's say the client says, oh my God, something's coming up. What is it? Well, when I was 9 years old, I was told by a mentor at the community center where I used to go after school. I remember telling him, I want to write a book one day. And he said to me, why? Nobody would ever be interested. You tell that to a child and they don't mean it. They don't know that they're putting that impression on you. But he could have told that to me and to my best friend, and my best friend would have stored that memory like a regular memory. And for me, for some reason, it became a trigger event. And so through EFT or hypnotherapy, this is why I do what I do. We can clear out that event and remove the trigger from that. And then we'll figure out what other obstacles are coming up. Let's remove the trigger from that so that you're not trying to recreate that same event, because this is what we have a tendency to do. Let's talk about heartbreak. So let's say you got rejected from a parental figure, wasn't in your life, and your jobs that you've had, you notice that you tend to work with people who are your bosses that don't give you affirmation, don't value you, because you're trying to recreate that same event where you had that void because you're hungry to fix it. You want to make it better. Notice me, like I'm doing a great job. You might do that in relationships, picking men or women that reject you or not fully available to you because you're recreating it. So for success, we'd have to figure out where are those beliefs possibly stemming from? Because if you believe it, then it's true. It doesn't matter if it's true or not in your life.
And I wanted to go over like the definition of like the subconscious mind, because I feel like some people, you know, we use the word, or some people may be like, what exactly does that mean? And like, it's important. Yeah. What is the subconscious mind and why is that so important in like what you do?
Yeah. So in our subconscious mind, we're really storing our life script. It's how you feel about your belief system, your associations, and it makes up all your decisions on a day-to-day basis, and how you feel about things, how you process the world derives from the subconscious. And it's the same thing as unconscious. Subconscious and unconscious, they interchangeably. So sometimes in fields, you might hear somebody say 3-2-1-0, tapping into the unconscious mind, because it helps the person just go and, you know, and just relax. They don't really go to sleep. They're actually very mentally alert. It's basically taking the energy from the body, the subconscious, where it shows up, and bringing it up to the mind so we can really hone in on the issue that you want to work on. Our automated behaviors need to happen, because can you imagine getting all these message units that you get, the lights, the crossing street, the car, my beeps, my thoughts, we are literally affected by our conscious, subconscious, our physical bodies, the environment constantly. We're getting impressed upon. So our mind has to really automate some of this to keep us from taking all of this in. So Reyna, you don't learn how to redo your job every day. You've automated that process, which is a great thing. You don't learn how to drive every day. You've automated that process. But what happens when we automate being addicted to the state of learned helplessness, being addicted to the state of depression, being addicted to the state of I am not good enough to be an expert in my field, you know? So we get addicted to these states, and they can make or break our careers, actually. Here's the subconscious and here's the conscious, and you have a conscious goal and you're like, I want to be successful. Now it's going to say, wait a minute, does the 95, this percent under here, does it agree with that conscious? Is it congruent? Does it agree? Is it in alignment? And this one goes down here and goes, hold on a second. Wait a minute. When we were young, we were told we weren't good enough. Or, you know, I tried something, I spoke at my class assembly and I got laughed at. Somehow in the hippocampus, it's literally bringing up those events as similar events of rejection. Maybe I have a fear of success. What if I'm too successful and they're going to laugh at me? So now it says, nope, we're not going to accept that idea. We're going to spit it back out, and that goal doesn't happen, and you self-sabotage. We work in the subconscious part to get that in agreement with your goal so that you have 100% mind power.
That's so true how you were saying, like we're comfortable, like it's when you're used to maybe people who continue being in like a toxic relationship, or like that they're used to that type of treatment or that type of feeling, or they're used to just not feeling like worthy of like growing and everything. But do you feel like people can, maybe I also think of it as like maybe your environment, right? Like the people close to you, because it obviously can have a big effect. Like maybe that person could be like a family member or something. What do you suggest when it is somebody close to you that's telling these things to you, and how can you ignore it, but you also kind of like, they're still family, you know, you're gonna see them, you can't really avoid them 1,000%, but like what would you recommend?
So for things to change, you need different stimuli. I do some work in the prison system in terms of using their time to build a new mind. What else are they going to do? And we know that with recidivism rates, when they go back into the same environment, they repeat offend, because your brain wants to go back to the known, or the same drug, or the same toxic relationship, because it's a false sense of comfort, but it's still comforting because you know it already. So even we can get dopamine hits from staying depressed, from listening to depressed, sappy love songs, and we're still getting those hits. So it can be very confusing. And so if you can't get out of that house, if you have to be in that household, it's really, really important that you protect this beautiful mind and protect what you're allowing in. You have to be that critical filter for yourself of when you were a kid, you weren't able to do that. You were a sponge, and you were just taking these impressions from these, let's just say family members, because some people they struggle with like the negativity from their family members. You were just taking that in, but now you're an adult. You have the cognitive ability to do it. You just need somebody to teach you how. And that's when I say about them being your own mind coach. So we can desensitize, it's called desensitization. So we can desensitize you to the criticism and having to go into defense mode. So, one of the things that I've said to a client once, and I said, what if you prayed for that person? Because that person I meet people where they're at, whatever belief systems they have. This person in particular is like me, loves God. And I was like, all right. And I said, because what happens is the data shows that when you actually pray for the people that are hurting you, there's something that physiologically happens to your brain and your body. And it's basically like equipping yourself to rise above it, even though we see the structure of the brain change when you forgive the people that have hurt you the most. I love that, because when you love on people, even those that hurt you, your brain and your body physiologically respond to benefit actually you. The vision that was placed in your heart, I heard this from someone else, and I wish I knew where to quote it. I know I read this or saw this somewhere, and I said, I like that. It was definitely a pastor. That vision was given to Reyna, not to this person, and this person, because you were chosen to make that vision happen. You are going to be equipped, not by man, but something greater that's going to identify you as an expert in that field. Okay. So when he says it's ready to go, it's ready to go. And I had to work through that, because when you don't have those cheerleaders in your closest circle, it is painful. So you have to, he didn't give the vision to mom or dad or my sister or my brother. So of course they're not going to see what I see. And so when you start thinking about that, then you go, you know what? It's really awesome. He gave it to me because I'm going to create it. You start to not harbor those negative emotions, and you start to feel like sorry for their limiting beliefs. Do not, when you ask for advice, when you even go to a therapist, you've got to go to somebody who has the lenses that are bigger than yours. So if you ask a friend for advice on something that you're working on, or a family member, they are always subconsciously giving you advice through their lens of life. And when you remember that, you're like, let me be discerning about who I share these things with. If it hasn't been done before, like you said, go to someone who has more experience than you as that mentor. But if it doesn't exist, you might be the first one that's creating it. Like, for me, like neurotheology and bringing together, data from what happens physiologically to your body, your brain and your body when you are in a positive relationship with God. I wanted to look at this data and then show the Bible verses that support that. And I did it in terms of a meditation, and I put it on YouTube, And so that's something that just came out of like fasting.
That's deep, yeah.
And then once I put it out, like some people were like, oh, you can't put it on this Facebook group because they're not going to understand. And I was like, really? Okay, I'll pray on that. And I would still do it. And I got some wonderful feedback from people in different states. The prison said to me, Jess, can you put it on DVDs that will help our women with anxiety since they're locked up 23 hours a day now with the pandemic that happened.
Oh my God.
Put it on a DVD, and it was like easy. The doors were just like boom, 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 opening up, And
wow.
you get teary-eyed because you're like, that's awesome.
You did that. Like that was an idea and it came, and now you're like changing lives.
One of my other joyful moments was coming back to teach at the Screen Actors Guild Conservatory. And I was there teaching actors on their mindset and how to overcome when they get told no, and how to desensitize to critique and criticism during auditioning, and how to keep their brains open so they can take those redirects from the casting director and have more flow in the body and be able to go with the performance, not perform from the head up, but bring the whole, like, when people cry and they force themselves, it's bad acting. No, we're going to bring the whole mind, body, soul into your performances now. So I was able to, because I allowed myself to be an actor, and I love it so much, by the way, but I knew there was something more. And then I went on this redirect, got the education, got the experience, and then come full circle. And this actor said to me, when you're up there, and he was like, you are like in flow. I can feel it. Like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I said, you see, here I am working with actors on something that's more meaningful to me. And I find more reward doing that. Although I'm not saying that my performance days are over, there are things that still come through every now and then, and I still love doing it.
Sometimes, the struggle or all of it's redirecting, right? Like you said, I wrote down accept the redirect. Love it.
And also, the studies show that, even with therapists, the more effective therapists are the ones who have struggled through what they're now teaching. Same thing with coaches. It's not the ones that have the most education in it. It's the one that actually lived it. So when I go back to teach actors and say, like, I get your pain because I lived it. Same thing, speaking of the prison, they see this, but I have to go into my ugly. I have to go into my pain. And when I was on the edge and abuses that happen, I have to show them. And as an actor, I'm able to open up my speaking engagement with them with a performance. And I get emotional, they get emotional, and they're like, these are lifers. Come on, Jessica, you're going to do it. You're going to do it. And the performance, and then coming out of it and then dropping it and being like, and this is who I am now. And you can do the same thing too. Let's go. Let's talk about training your mind up, because I went from that dip and I got equipped. And that's where you learn the most. So you're in the dip now, but you're going to come out equipped. Let's use your time to train your mind. And they're like, BU Bloom is the website. And then Instagram, I put different things on different platforms. So some people really like podcasts and listening when they're going to work. So I have that on Spotify in different areas. And then Instagram as well, and Facebook. So yeah, and YouTube, because sometimes there are things that I want to put on YouTube, like I have a crush on Einstein, and I love how he says, the more I know science, the more I discovered God. And so my crush. And so I break down how Einstein used techniques to open up his mind to solve mathematical calculations and the theory of relativity. So I have like a video on there that those get more in depth.
I know you're passionate about it, and especially you're also very you are a believer of God, and also you do this type of work. So it's really powerful both, right? For some people are like, oh, that's not God stuff. It's you can, you are proof that it can be done. So
oh no, I appreciate that so much. And we're all tools. whether you go to a doctor, a coach, a fitness instructor, a pastor, but I never replace him, your relationship with him, or what your belief system is. So we're just self-improvement tools, and we've been given gifts to help our fellow brothers and sisters overcome and live this life with more joy. Ultimately, for me, is let's everybody's like, oh, next year's going to be better. Next year's going to be better. And the next year comes and they say the next year, I'm like, no, let's live better today. Like starting today, let's do that starting today. And I really am a believer in that. So that if you left this world tomorrow, you could say, I had a great day yesterday. I had a good day yesterday. That cup of coffee was good yesterday. Give yourself grace for your suffering.
Yeah.
But don't suffer all the time, because then you won't, when suffering should be happening, you can't honor that. So you can even be productive with your suffering, and make it something of utility. Okay, what could I turn this into? It's hard. I miss them. I miss these people in my life. What could I turn this into that's useful for me and for others, So it's your behavior will train your brain that way. So just be mindful of the people around you, what's in your garden, who are the other flowers in your garden, your mental garden. And one thing I can share with you too is like I wrote this thing for an industry magazine in terms of business, like their medical practices. And these go to the administrators of the medical practices to figure out tips on how to train their teams. And it's called a 5 to 7 minute rule for venting productively. Venting was supposed to be a productive thing. We've turned venting into just snowballing. So do this with your friends. I have an agreement with some of my core friends. They get to vent to me for 5 to 7 minutes, and then they have to turn it to the upside and say, so what I learned about that was, or is, what I learned that I don't like is, one day a friend of mine called and she was venting. I was in the phone. I was driving, and I looked at my watch and I was like, if she doesn't turn this vent to a redirect to the upside, I'm going to do it for her. Because you would do it then. You would say, okay, so what did you learn? I'm going to cut you off right there. What did you learn? Right when I was about to say that, she goes, okay, so, all right. So now that that's out of my body, here's what I learned. And I was like,
yeah.
So now HR managers can use that. And when their employees come in, you've got five minutes to, what you'll find is that your employees will start to vent less of those 5 to 7 minutes, and they'll start redirecting the vent with solutions. Now you're motivating them to intrinsically self-direct and manage themselves, come up with the solutions.
I have some closing questions so people can kind of get to know you a little bit more and fun. What was the last book you read?
No Lotus, No Mud, No Lotus. I love this Vietnamese monk. He's 94 years old. The Art of Transforming Suffering. Amazing. It's easy to read. Amazing.
Wow. Okay. No Mud, No Lotus.
Yes.
I love reading. I also feel like reading allows me to to kind of just forget it, not think of other, my mind is always, I feel like it's hard to, or someone told me it's like meditation. If meditation is really hard, like doing something that's like the same, like something repetitive, like biking or like reading or even watching a show. I like to kind of just to get your mind off of whatever.
To get your mind off of thinking about something.
Unwinding. Yeah. Like unwinding or.
Yeah. That's called transient hyperfrontality. It literally, you're going to give your thinking brain a break when you go run or exercise. And that's actually when your genius ideas come in.
Yeah. Yes. When I'm on my Stairmaster, I'm like, I'm dying, but I'm like, oh, I have this idea. And then in my phone, I'm like writing out the notes and planning out this whole thing. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why doesn't it's so true. I get the best ideas like when I'm working out or
showering.
Or showering. That's so true.
You want to do something that's still physical and moving, more so than just watching TV. Even taking a shower, and release the problem or release the idea, and then it's going to come to you. It's really awesome. Yeah. The brain organizes itself, and it's like, here you go.
Yeah. Okay. And if you could give a piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
I would say, and I've done this in child within exercises, which I love, visiting my younger self. I would say, hold on, baby girl. You don't know this, but times may be lonely at times. You may feel isolated. but you're going to get an army of angels around you that even some people will be able to see, that are going to be your best friends and help you do some amazing things.
I want to encourage everybody, like, definitely, I'm probably going to book a session too. And just to, because everyone has those, like, something that they need to work on, or just like that's really going to open up doors for you. Or I don't know, and this for people listening, like, just think of something that's blocking you, or you're like, there's just something that's like stuck in the way, then definitely talk to Jessica. And like, I am sure you'll remove that. That, and like and as you know, as we all heard, like, you have so much research and data, like, and you remember all these like terms and everything. Like me, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember in this like one article, but you remember like details, and that's very powerful. Thank you so much for being part of this interview. And I'm sure everybody learned so many things and they're going to implement it. So thank you.